Welcome back to those of you who attended our last session, and welcome to any newcomers. My name is Grace Rogers, and I'm a Senior Customer Success Manager over here at Automox, and I'm here with Brent Dukes, the Director of InfoSec at Mueller Water Products, and one of our amazing customers I personally have the pleasure of working alongside of to ensure they are successful with the platform. So Brent, in light of the topic for this session, I'd love to just dig right in. How
Sure.
you truly are able to leave work at work with the help of Automox.
Okay.
So to start, if you'll introduce yourself, and then we can go into what your favorite feature is.
Sure. Yeah. So for those that missed me on the first one, I'm Brent Dukes, the Director of Information Security at Mueller Water Products. We are an Atlanta-based manufacturer of pipes, or pipe fittings, hydrants, and valves.
Awesome. Do you want to give a little bit of a background into your role and just about Mueller Water Products? Give them that fun fact about the hydrants.
Sure. Yeah. So I've been at Mueller for 19 years. Sorry, I was trying to give the short version this time.
I just love the background. So
yeah, I've been here for 19 years. I started off in engineering, but moved into the IT organization about 5 years ago to lead our information security team when the business realized that we needed a dedicated team. We're not just a tech business, so we have our regular office workers. We have a whole manufacturing business, which is a couple thousand employees. And then we do have a tech segment of the business that does engineering of all types, firmware, software, mechanical engineering. But if you heard me mention that we're a manufacturer of fire hydrants, if you live somewhere in a city or town in the United States, anyways, that has fire hydrants, there's a 50% chance that if you go outside and you look on the hydrant, it will say Mueller on it, because we have about a 50% market share in the US. So next time you're outside, go look at those fire hydrants and see if it's a Mueller.
Or if you're in Massachusetts and you see someone taking a selfie with a fire hydrant, it might.
Yes, that's me. That's me.
It is in fact Brent.
Although I travel all over, and yes, I take pictures of fire hydrants everywhere I go if they're Mueller, because I like to have a collection for my various presentations and things like that. So
I love it. That's awesome. Well, Brent, can you tell us a little bit about what your favorite feature in the Automox console is, and maybe one feature that you just couldn't live without?
Yeah. So I would say that simple things are good, right? I'm going to go back to a simple feature, right? Is the grouping of the endpoints in Automox. Because, and I don't think this is a unique challenge for any type of business really, but we have groupings of endpoints that are like laptops or desktops that are people's work computer. But then we have a lot of different types of servers. We have bare metal servers that are on premise. We have a number of virtualized servers that are on premise. And then we have a whole bunch of virtualized servers in the cloud. And, all of those different servers, especially, some of them are performing business critical tasks, and you can't just apply a patch and reboot them anytime you want. The business would come to a grinding halt potentially if we reboot them all at the same time. So, the ability to just group things and say, okay, these are our ERP system for finance and for manufacturing. And, they're on a certain maintenance schedule. And, we have test servers, and then we have the production ones, right? So we put them on different schedules. Same thing with any of our other types of servers. We have servers that are hosting customer portals for various metrics on their water usage and things like that in their town. And we can't just reboot those anytime, because that customer may be trying to do a billing cycle where they're trying to bill their customers for how much water they've consumed this month or this quarter or something like that. So we have to have very scheduled maintenance windows, and they're not all the same. They're all different for all the different types of servers. So just the ability to group all those different categories so that they're all on their own schedule for reboots. Although, I know a lot of patches don't require reboots anymore, but some of them do. Right. And that's the risk. That's the risk. And, there's risk in applying any patch. What if it makes the software break? We want to be able to test our patches on a test system first and make sure that it's still operational and work with that business owner because my team can't be the judge of if the server is even working correctly or not afterwards. We can run a few tests potentially, but it's really the owner of that server that kind of owns that application, knows what it's supposed to do, that can come back and tell us, yes, this is still functioning properly. We can move on and do the production machines or something like that.
Yeah,
So
no, absolutely. I think that helps highlight too, just how such a small feature can be yet like so mighty. And two, it just highlights, how creating the bones of your environment to be set up, in an organizational fashion with those groups is such a great first step too for new customers. And then even for customers that, maybe things change in the organization, going back to that, standard and that foundation of making sure the groups are set up properly so that you can ensure that everything inside of those, policy settings, not to get too granular, but are exactly the way you need them, right? Whether that's for reboots or maintenance schedules, things of that nature. So yeah.
Yeah. And if you're starting from scratch, this is not an easy task. There's potentially, depending on the size of your business, of course, this can be work. For a business of our size, it took us some time to figure this out. And I guess maybe now I'm bleeding the last talk into this one and saying world-class IT organization. But if you want to be a world-class IT org, you've got to, instead of focusing on today's problems, you've got to have a longer-term strategic plan and say, okay, we need to figure out what these groups are going to be and take, the weeks or potentially months in a big enough environment to go through and figure out those groups, talk to all the business owners to figure out what does this machine actually do. Potentially you don't even know who's the owner of that application is on that machine. Maybe you don't even know what it does. If you're starting from nothing and have no asset inventory whatsoever, the work for this could potentially be months long, but that investment in time is definitely going to be worth it in the end, when now when you can reboot servers and you've already agreed with that owner, this is the time to do it. And now you can just start patching on that maintenance schedule and everything just works.
Yeah.
And everybody can be happy.
Yes. Yeah. Setting that groundwork is so huge. And just, like we were saying, continuing to iterate on that, right? I mean, you're running a lean, world-class IT organization. I know one of those things is just continuing to make sure that, what you've set up is working properly, and we're continuing to add in best practices. I mean, I know just working with your team, you all are always eager, going in there and saying, hey, this is what we currently have set up. How can we better improve it? Is there any changes we need to make? Do we need to add a new group? So again, kind of going back to what you said, setting that foundation, even though, yes, it might take a little bit more time, is so important.
Yes.
So I know we could talk about that for a while, but just to kind of go into some additional questions, can you tell us a little bit about your experience with worklets? I know we hinted at a few, different pain points and resolutions that you've had with them in the last session. So I highly recommend whoever wasn't able to join the last session to definitely take a listen, because Brent shared a really cool story, but would love to hear what that experience is like.
Yeah. And if I had to pick my second favorite feature of AutoMox, the first one is grouping, but second favorite would be worklets, because they've definitely saved us a lot of work here and there. I told the story about the log4j vulnerability and being able to quickly do an inventory of every machine in the environment and tell us what has some software that's using this library that has this major critical vulnerability that we have to patch today. Figuring that out and then deploying that patch pretty much within 24 hours, I believe was how we were able to do it. That was one way that we leveraged worklets. But we also recently, well, it's not recently, it's within the last year, I would say, we added a feature to our email system where incoming emails from outside the organization get a banner at the top of the email that's color coded. And, if it's yellow or red, it potentially tells you some indications that this is a very suspicious email. Maybe it came from a person outside the org that has the exact same name as someone inside the org, because we oftentimes see people, phishing emails say, hey, I need you to change my payroll, my direct deposit, and it has the same name. And if it, we have a lot of precautions against that, but they happen, right? So it tells you this is from outside New York, but it's a similar name. This is very suspicious, or a newly created domain name. This domain name was created 2 days ago. It's probably being used in a phishing campaign. It's probably not a legitimate business, right? Now, from a security perspective, we have images turned off on in Outlook for everybody's email. So, you have to manually allow list senders that you want to be able to see images from. But the way that this banner works, it comes in as an image. So we needed to basically allow list this particular domain name that hosts the images for this banner. And those that control is a registry. In Windows, it's a registry setting. I'm talking a lot about Windows today, but this kind of applies to all the different operating systems, right? Yeah. So it's a registry setting. You have to go on every single machine and allow list this one domain name. So we created a worklet to do that, so that we didn't have to go through all the trials and tribulations of going onto everybody's machine with we call a registry hack, right? It's usually like a .reg file or something. We were able to deploy and apply that through a worklet that we custom made as well. And I would say another major thing that we've done with worklets is distributing our internal certificate authority for internal websites and for software signing and things like that. We're able to distribute that through a worklet too. So if any machine doesn't have it, we're pushing it out. So those are some of the top ways we're leveraging worklets. I think that we're also using that to enforce disk encryption. Something that we added since we got AutoMox, we're enforcing disk encryption on all endpoints, because occasionally every year there's a couple that turn up lost or stolen or something. So we'd rather internal information not be that easy to access to the public, whoever stole that. Something I'm excited to implement, but we haven't gotten to yet, is blocking USB storage.
Yeah.
And I think that we're just not mature enough of an organization to be able to do that quite yet. I think that there's some training involved, making sure people know how to take advantage of our company sanctioned cloud storage to distribute files digitally and transfer them between employees or machines and things like that. So we haven't gotten to that point yet, but I want to. So I think that's something we're looking forward to, maybe within the next year, to get there.
Yeah,
right?
No, that's awesome. And I'm glad you were able to just give so many different examples. It's just goes to show how widespread too our worklets can go, right? I mean, there's so many various things that you can do. And something I will say, our worklet team is now super eager to make sure that we are exceeding the worklet catalog. I think, we have a goal of, another, several hundred. So, which is really incredible. I think that will help our customers who maybe even aren't necessarily scripting or coding experts to go in there and be able to just kind of plug and play. So
yeah, I occasionally go through there and look at them, because like the USB storage one, there's a lot of things that I'm excited, like, hey, we should do this, but we're not ready for this yet.
Yeah.
We've been getting our security practice is getting better over time here. We're becoming a world-class IT org. But you have to weigh the risk. The reason we haven't done that yet, the thing I fear most is our CEO occasionally goes and speaks at conferences, right? And I don't want him to be at a conference and they tell him, oh yeah, we just need you to put the presentation on this USB stick and you use the laptop on the podium. I don't want him to be stuck, right? Because then he's going to come and say, Brent Dukes told me I couldn't use that USB stick and I couldn't present. So we got to figure out how to make sure everybody is aware of how to do these things, right?
Yeah. Do everyone except for him.
Right.
Put him in his own group.
Yeah, he could be a special category. But I mean, the executives are the biggest targets of these things.
Right.
Maybe USB storage isn't necessarily a targeted attack. That's more of an insider threat kind of thing. So you would hope, I trust our CEO. I don't think he's going to steal all our company data and run off. But you don't want to have exception in the security industry. You want everything to be the same. You don't want to have all these exceptions. And it happens, unfortunately. But I'd rather be able to apply a policy to 100% no exceptions. So we got to figure out how to get there.
Yeah, no, I love that. And I think that, of course, every organization is different, but in terms of, where we see success, it definitely is, being able to apply those, guidelines and regulations across the organization, right? And just keep it streamlined. And I'm sure that also goes back to your book, right? And making sure that everyone is running efficiently. So,
Right.
awesome. Are there any other features that you find that you use frequently?
Well, I would just say that, one of we talked about my favorite thing, my second favorite thing, but I guess if you had to pick a third favorite thing,
Runner up.
just, the ability it's the same tool for all operating systems, right? I've been talking about Windows a lot today, but, first of all, especially in the last few years, we've had a number of teams really adopting Macs and pushing heavily. They want to have Macs. They don't want to use Windows. And, we have a number of Linux systems around the organization as well, both on premise and in the cloud for various reasons. And, secondly, we're a manufacturing company. So we have a lot of operational technology, and the operational technology it's really all over the place. You've got things running embedded Linux. You've got things running various versions of Windows. So just having one place to manage everything the same way is kind of key for me. And so I'll pick that as my third runner up, as you said.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I think that's great. And, we always like to say a single pane of glass, but I really do stick to that with my customers, because the fact that, it's cross OS, right? We really mean it. And the ability to come in there and have everything in one place is so huge, especially for, teams that are dealing with so many various vendors day in and day out. I know one thing that we talked about in our last session, and I would just love to highlight here too, is, I know you all leverage APIs, and specifically, for Splunk, if we could just, kind of touch back on that, because, I think it's so huge that, of course, yes, you have as many users in AutoMox as possible, in terms of those who need it, but then you have those who go over to Splunk and can see all of the data that you are, handling in AutoMox fed through in a similar, single pane of glass.
Right. Yeah. So we have a number of dashboards in Splunk that the security team manages to kind of keep an eye on what's going on. And I think when you use the Splunk app, it comes with like an AutoMox dashboard, basically, that has all the information that kind of, I wouldn't say mirrors the AutoMox dashboard, but it's basically the same type of information. But we also we built our own dashboards where we're kind of taking key metrics from different tools around the organization and putting them all on one single pane of glass, so that we can have a quick look at the entire org and say, okay, what's our patch status, and what's the security levels on our corporate websites, and how many people are logged into the VPN, and all these different metrics on one place. So that's how we're using the data in Splunk, is kind of these combined dashboards, and you can drill into it if you want to look at patch status more thoroughly. But I can tell you, we've also used the APIs kind of in a more manual way with some Python scripts. Within the last year, we were, as part of our exercise of replacing outdated operating systems, we wanted to pull a lot of metrics on systems that had older OSs, Windows XP, various versions of Windows Server that were old. And we ended up writing some stuff in Python to query the AutoMox API and build our own reports with the metrics that we wanted. I think that we could have used the AutoMox reporting. We could have used reports out of Splunk, but for some reason we felt that we could really massage the data the way we wanted by just pulling the API, getting it into a JSON format, and kind of parsing through the data in our own code. So we've leveraged it that way as well. So yeah, so APIs can be my fourth favorite feature.
There we go. We'll add it to the list.
Yeah.
I think that's great too, to just hone in on the various ways the API can be leveraged as well. Awesome. So kind of more high level question for you to answer to the group too is, Mueller is a large organization, right? So, just want to talk about, how has Autobox impacted working on such a large scale and your, the size of your organization?
Yeah. I think that comes back to the worklets, especially, right?
Yeah.
When we've got, I want to say we have about 2,600 machines in Automox today for our organization. And like I mentioned, that registry hack for the email banner that we're putting up, distributing our certificate authority, our internal certs, applying rules to the various machines like disk encryption, or maybe someday blocking USB storage. When you're talking about that many machines, you have to have a tool that can automatically manage this for you. You can't go one by one, right? Nobody wants to do that. Nobody has the resources and time to do that. It would just be terrible. It'd be miserable.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say the worklets are the key to doing things at scale, because you can kind of pick, are you applying this to a group, the entire org? How are you rolling this out? And you test. If you wrote it yourself, or even if you're using an Automox one, you probably want to test it on a few machines first. You have your test group or something with a few different machines. And then, once you're ready to roll, you just kind of apply it to all the machines you want to, and you kind of can just sit back and check back on it a little bit later and see, machines weren't online because somebody was on vacation. Okay, those will come back. Just make sure that it went out. But for the most part, it's really kind of simple, which is
No,
good.
that's awesome. And I think that helps just, everyone to understand, how scalable too the product can be, right? And, the ability after you run those to hone in on the reporting and see, what worked, what didn't, where do we need to go back to the drawing board? And I think that also just circles back to what we were talking about earlier, setting that foundation early on to make sure that everything is set up accordingly, even just starting at the group level, right? To make sure you have a test group. So that was the last question. I know we only have, a little bit of time left, so I would love to dig into some of our Q&A. So one question that we have is, do you write your own worklets, or does Automox write them for you? I know we spoke about this a little bit, but obviously we have our Automox catalog, but I know you all as well are pretty proficient in writing.
Yeah, we've done both. For sure, there's worklets in there that we can leverage that you all have written, but we've definitely written our own. That the email banner for one, the log4j, that was like a same day, this is an emergency kind of thing. We wrote that really quickly within a day and had that deployed. So we've done both for sure. But I have noticed that there's a log4j one in there in the Automox library too. So
Yeah.
I know you all came out with that, but we're trying to be right on top of that one. So we had to go faster. So yeah, we've done both. There's, they're not difficult to do.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah.
And I'll just, again, say, that we are continuing to expand into that worklet. And I know just from a CSM perspective, we want to work with our customers to help build out any that they would like to see as well. So our worklet team is rip, ready and roaring to get on with our customers, or, see, what you would like to have added into the catalog. So for another question, we have, how do you collaborate with your CSM? So I can speak to that a little bit, and then I can hand it over to you, Brent, to see if you have anything you want to add. But I work really closely, with Brent's team, just as I do with my other customers and our other CSMs, to ensure we're maximizing their goals as a department and organization. So we work together to define success and essentially, what that means to achieve that success. For example, I can say, right now I'm working with Brent's team and finding gaps where, even though they're already automating so much with worklets, where is there a gap that we can maybe fill to further automate? How can we take some of that added time, maybe they're utilizing on something away, and fill that with a worklet? And then remote control is one of our other features I know that we're going to dig in with your team. But I would say from a high level, as a CSM, our job is to really dig in and figure out how we can better, streamline our power users and how we can make your life easier.
Yeah, I would say that those meetings, we have a scheduled, I believe it's monthly right now,
Yeah.
right? Where we sit down and we talk through problems, and we've worked with some of your technical resources after those meetings in the past where we were trying to figure something out. They've been super helpful to the team. I'm just the leader of the team, so I'm the one who probably has my hands in this tool the least out of everybody. So unfortunately, I don't always make them. I'm sorry that I'm not always on the call.
That's okay. You're there in spirit.
I'm there in spirit. Yeah. But I mean, you've been reliable. You've always been there for the meetings. We've helped the team through a number of problems over the years. I mean, we've been working together for a number of years now. It's really been a good relationship. And coming back to world-class IT, one of the pillars is maintaining relationships with your vendors and things like that. Good relationships with your vendors, not bad relationships, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really excited to continue working with you and the team there. We've had nothing but good experiences. Even we've asked you questions before. I think we noticed something. Is this a bug? I don't think that this is right. Super helpful. I don't have anything bad to say about working with the team. So
that's awesome. Yeah. I mean, I know I can say, on behalf of our entire customer experience team, it goes both ways. It's so important to have customers that are, collaborating and all hands on deck, of course, as much as possible. It definitely helps. So it goes both ways, and we really appreciate the partnership. We have one more question we'll be able to get to, is how long did it take to become proficient in the AutoMox console?
Well, that's a great question because, like I said, my team is the ones that have their hands in this tool every day. And I'm the one that's like, yeah, I'm in it occasionally, but I'm not in there every day, patching things or making sure things are patched and stuff like that. So I'm actually the perfect person to ask this question because although I'm a very technical person, having an engineering background and everything, I haven't sat down for hours of training with AutoMox or anything like that. But I would say that for me, the first time I logged in, my hurdle was the terminology, right? Like, what does groups mean? What does policies mean? What does worklets mean? Which you can figure out in about if you're super smart, maybe 5 minutes. I may have taken 15 minutes because I was distracted by a bunch of other stuff going on. But I mean, yeah, it's simple, right? Like software solutions today, SaaS solutions today should be easy to figure out. You can log in, you can figure out, the initial dashboard. I love the newer style of the dashboard where you and there's like I don't know how to explain it. It's like a grid of critical patches and patch time. That's actually a great visualization that I'm a big fan of. It's easy to understand. You can click on things and it'll drill down and give you more information about what you want. So for me, 15 minutes, a half hour of non-guided, just self-guided poking around in there, not changing anything, so my team wouldn't get mad at me.
Anything.
Right. I mean, I have a good grasp of what's going on in there. So I think that, writing worklets, some prior experience with writing PowerShell or some other programming language will be helpful there, depending on what you're trying to do. And maybe you don't even need that. Some of the things you can do without that experience.
Sure.
But yeah, I think that it's easy to use. It's not hard to figure out, and there's resources online. I actually searched for something this morning. I was able to just Google it and it came right up. So
that's amazing. I mean, 15 to 30 minutes, that's a pretty incredible. And I think, we continue to iterate upon, our knowledge base articles and, located in our customer portal, as well as AutoMox University. I mean, our team does such a great job. Just, quick shout out to our university team. I mean, they're constantly uploading new courses there and making sure that they are aligning with exactly, the changes or enhancements that we've made in the platform, which I think is really huge, especially, for customers that have been here forever, as well as customers that are new. So, but regardless, that's awesome that, first glance, first entering the console, 15 to 30 minutes, I think that's a huge win. So
yeah, I think most people could probably figure out even faster than I'm being generous. Yeah.
I might not. I'd be right there with you. Well, awesome. And that's all we have time for today, unfortunately. So any questions that were unable to be answered, we will follow up with an AutoMoxer. So you definitely will get an answer to your question. Again, thank you so much, Brent. We so appreciate it. And to all of those who attended live or listening to the recording, thank you so much for joining. And we look forward to seeing you soon.